I mean, look, Oprah did this with Dr. Phil. I mean,
she's
he's
done that
great.
a lot.
Yeah, we could go that Dr. Oz, I think, was once again. And so you got to think more like that. You got to be more of a catalyst than just the doer. You got to catalyze.
That's a good way to put
connect, and it just takes a different thinking. Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. Garrett Gunderson, Ask the Money Nerds. This is the Kansas City episode because, as you're going to see, Chief of Staff Stolba has her Kansas City Chiefs stuff on because, well, they won a game in the playoffs, and so that's the time we're recording this. And in honor of that, we're going to answer questions from Kansas City.
Yes,
right?
We are.
Questions about, like, building a personal brand. Let's start there. Let's start with that question and how you do that without being too trapped.
Let's do it. So the question for today comes in from Ray Lynn. My personal request is to hear more stories and examples of people who are scaling their business, who have specialties, or whose industry tends to brand based on their own name. So how are people creatively scaling when they personally are in high demand? And I think you have a lot to say about this because being a speaker and an author and your face on the front of a company, I think you have some good experience to share.
Definitely. I mean, I think that, the more people expect you individually, the less you've done to create something that makes them feel like that's less attainable. So in writing a book, it becomes a not just a book, like some people write a book and they hand it out as a business card almost to get business. But when you write a book and you can start to feature people, like I co-authored books, so I could feature the other people, and those people could go and do speaking, and those people could become part of a podcast, and those people I could start to elevate their status because they had great ability on the one-on-one side. So it becomes about how do you start using that brand on a one-to-many side, right? So for me, it's like I'm writing for Forbes, right? I'm writing books. I'm doing video. I'm doing these types of things. And then I'm highlighting and bringing up other people that do a lot of that implementation so that there could be a handoff of, oh, that's Garrett's guy, or, oh, that's who he would use, or, hey, it takes a team and there's an effort. So you got to increase that positioning individually. Like nobody's expecting Dr. Oz to come and do their surgery anymore, right? Because he's on TV all the time. Once you're on TV, that kind of changes the game. That's obviously a pretty big one. But there's these other methods that we talked about with books and podcasts and those types of things. The second thing is, what can you do to improve your industry? So there isn't just like, what Wealth Factory does is an organization that I happen to be a founder in and the majority partner. There's also what we do to support the financial industry and teach them what we're doing, inviting them to our events, creating videos with them and for them, and teaching them exactly how we've done what we've done. So that I can actually use my positioning and my name and my brand to shed a light on them and to, once again, one-to-many, because they're good at one-to-one. So webinars are a huge effective thing for that, right? That's another thing that I do pretty regularly, being a guest on someone else's podcast, doing case studies and highlights and bringing in the other people that were part of bringing that about so they know, oh, like, look, I'm the worst at if I had to sit down and take someone through the Wealth Factory process. I'm not a process guy. I'm a project guy. Always something new, always adapting, always up to something, always creating, where other process people are better at making sure there's a consistent experience. So what can you do to elevate your positioning and status and authority, and then really start to bring people along with you by recognizing them, highlighting them, and making them part of that journey?
So a lot of the people that we work with are in the functional medicine space. So chiropractors, lots of hands-on work there, dentists. I know in this instance, they're counselors.
Right.
So, they might not be busy doing webinars, but...
Well, look, let's talk about Dr. Jason West, okay? Because I know I can share his story.
Yes.
So when I meet him, it's as a patient. So I'm in a documentary, which positioned him because I know a lot of people in that space, but it's like, oh, he's only 2.5 hours away when I go there. And it was a very long day because he was doing so much himself. And so people are seeing him, he's talking to him, he's such good, bedside manner and all this kind of stuff, but he's doing all my injections. He's just doing so much that I was there 4 times longer than when I go there now. Because and I just said to him, I go, what makes you think you have to be the one to deliver all this service? He goes, well, that's what people expect. That's what they've always gotten. I'm like, yeah, but you don't have a book. but you haven't been featured, you know, you just got featured in this documentary. You can actually leverage that kind of thing. And where else could we do some of these things? And so he actually put in a TV studio. He started doing those types of factors, and then he started to introduce you to the other people, and hey, they're the best at this, and start to delegate some of those things, which allowed him to elevate his status overall because of those books.
Yeah.
And because he started doing video and putting those out there. So he's doing these daily doses of vitamin H, you know, so it's like, for Dr. Vitamin J. So like Jason. So, you know, it started to have it where he had a team that he could bring in, and he could position them, and he could introduce them. And because his status was elevated. And so he became a lot better at one-to-many and let the other people get really into the one-on-one. And, you know, I don't know if he was the best at doing my neural injections or not. I didn't really care. I like spending time with him, but I was okay. And I'm probably one of the more difficult patients because I have his cell phone and we're buddies, right? Yeah. So a lot of it is the old people that you're working with are going to have a harder time than the new people, because new people just do what you tell them to do.
Yeah.
This is our process. This is how it works. Here's the introduction. But old people are like, wait, you always met with me. So it's easier with new, harder with old.
Yeah, there's a transition period, right?
A
re-education.
The old one, it's like a relay race. You don't just throw the baton. You don't just walk away. You got to hand it, which means you got to position them. Hey, why don't you come in? And then you're watching, oh man, you're good at that, right? And then all of a sudden, like, they feel comfortable with it. So it takes a little bit more work up front. But then the new people, you just outline it of this is how it works, period. They don't know any different. They're just coming into that process.
Okay. So it sounds like, you know, you have to take an approach for your existing clients versus new people you bring on. You know, the approach to that transition is a little bit different, and it might be a slow process, but start putting yourself out there in new ways on different mediums and begin.
Is it writing? Is it speaking? Is it video? And, you know, who else can you bring along? Who can you highlight? Who can you show? Is they're the one, like, if you're the what and why person, you've got to have a how and when person. And the how and when is who helps out the patients, or who helps out the clients, or helps out that end user. And so that's where you get to do the case studies and the videos. That's where you get to highlight who that individual is. That's where you make it part of the process or the intake form or whatever it is, that they're seeing those people and that it's being built out for them.
Okay.
All right. So there's a way that you can, you know, get away from the one-on-one exclusively and help more people through a one-to-many model. It's really about elevating your status, your positioning, and bringing people along that you can then point to and say, they're great. I mean, look, Oprah did this with Dr. Phil. I mean,
she's
he's
done that
great.
a lot.
Yeah, we could go that Dr. Oz, I think, was once again. And so you got to think more like that. You got to be more of a catalyst than just the doer. You got to catalyze.
Yeah, that's a good way to put
connect, and it just takes a different thinking.
Yeah.